there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, knowing which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. If you're looking for a real review from a mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. So this week's book review is Operation Meteor by Rob Baddorf, and this is book 3 in the Sneaky Ink Spy Adventure series. So similar to book 2, book 3 is going to open right up at the beginning of a new operation as the main characters are seeking to stop Marlin Ledger from his plans to destroy the world with a nuclear weapon. Readers may or may not remember that Marlin is also Isabel's father. So as the story opens, Isabel and Robin are climbing the outside of a building to get fingerprints of Marlin off a window handle in his office. There has been some surveillance that took place obviously before this activity. And meanwhile, Anika and Chad are attempting to distract Marlin's mercenaries in the lower part of the building. So I'm going to read just a little bit of the opening chapter just to kind of remind you of the writing style and just the way that the story opens to kind of grip readers. Robin's hands were already shaking. The whole Sneaky Ink team had worked out the plan. On paper, it looked perfect, but very few things are truly perfect, especially when heights are involved. And why did their missions always have to involve being up high? And why did Robin always get that part of the job? He didn't want to think about it now. The ball was rolling. The operation had already begun. If he could just focus his eyes upward, everything would be fine. Robin glanced at his watch. 3:28 a.m. He yawned. It felt like the dead of night, because it was. He thumb pressed the button of the side of his hand control. Psst. The giant suction cup in his hand released pressure. Reaching up, he reapplied it higher on the wall of glass before him. It made a new sound as it sucked itself to the glass, reattaching. Hold on. Robin did hear the sound of it reattaching, correct? He had heard it now so many times that he couldn't remember if he had actually heard it this time or just imagined it. Robin hesitated. He put a bit of weight onto the left suction cup. It was roughly the size of a small dinner plate. The steel handle fit nicely in his grip with an easy-to-reach trigger. Clipped to the bottom of the suction cup was a strap that looped below, creating a hold for his foot. Robin tested it carefully with more weight. It felt solid. He continued to climb without any problems. Robin didn't want to focus on the machinery, how it worked or how it might not work. He just wanted it to keep holding him. How much higher did they have to go? Against his better judgment, Robin looked down. He immediately regretted it. A dizzying 30 stories or more drifted below him. His stomach sank, tightening and filling with acid. Robin forced his gaze back up. So that's just a little bit of the opening of the story, just to kind of give you an idea. So the characters ultimately succeed in their opening operation, but in the midst of it, Isabel really is challenging Robin in his faith and then expresses a desire to become a Christian. And all of this is while they are on the outside of the building. And as you can tell from the opening, Robin is terrified from heights. And if you have a reader who has or hasn't read the earlier ones, or this is maybe your first introduction to this series, he is definitely afraid of heights. So he's flustered in the moment due to the heights, and he definitely regrets how he handles that moment. Ultimately, the characters use the fingerprint to create a 3D rendering of Marlin's thumb, which allows them access to the phone that they retrieved in book 2. Before long, the characters are off on the next mission to stop Marlin from obtaining $1 billion insurance check, which is what they kind of learn about from using the thumb on the phone and getting access to some of his documents. But their plans to retrieve it first do not go as planned. The characters end up having to do a prisoner exchange with Marlin that also does not go as expected. And the tension rises. Doom is imminent. The characters make one last attempt to stop Marlin. However, Marlin has set a trap for them, and they all end up in an airplane with an armed nuclear weapon. As a spoiler, just so parents know, the story is going to end well. Marlin does end up in prison with the final scene of Isabel visiting her father in prison to kind of share with him about Jesus. And she's hoping that he will repent and receive salvation. So that is just kind of, letting you know there's a lot of tension in where the story ends up. I do want to encourage you to go to my website at holdingsteadfastreaders.com. You are going to find some additional details about this book, particular quotes that are mentioned in here, just to make you aware of, and some of them I think are good. So there are just some things that I put in there that are not on the video. So that's at holdingsteadfastreaders.com. One of the things in this particular series or installment in this series is you're going to see more faith elements as each of the characters are kind of wrestling with aspects of faith, whether that's praying more, wanting salvation, wondering what God's role is in what is taking place. And so a lot of that is definitely great themes. One of the things that I do like is how Isabella, especially in the opening, she's really challenging Robin. And I think those are great questions to kind of follow up with your reader. Like, how would they respond to some of those questions that Isabella is raising? Definitely an apologetics moment in the story that's kind of weaved in. And so I definitely enjoyed that. So one other thing about this book, if you haven't seen my earlier reviews, the chapters are pretty short, anywhere from 2 to 4 pages. So it definitely builds a lot of tension and suspense. The story is a quick read. It's fast-paced action. He does a good job of just sort of skipping time a little bit. You'll see at the end that like months have passed between some of the final chapter and what is the last sort of scene as they're plummeting back to Earth on a Humvee and stuff. So definitely you have to suspend some reality because we have teenagers working for the FBI. But for readers who love action and adventure, I would definitely encourage you to check out Operation Meteor. So this is book 3 in the series. And there are a few more in this series. So I hope that this year in 2026, I'm going to bring you some more details about each of those books. And then that way you can kind of determine whether or not this might be appropriate or something that your reader might enjoy. So I thank you for joining me for this week's book review, and I hope that you'll join me next week for another book review.